Today, I am delighted to be joined once again by my friend Nathan Emerson, CEO of Propertymark. Propertymark are an industry body, an industry membership body. They have 18,000 agents right across the country dealing in all sectors of the property market. So in terms of insights as to what is actually happening out there right now, Propertymark is the place that we and that you should always go to. They don't have supposition, they don't have journalistic interpretation, they're not some sort of flogging headlines or anything. This is actually what is happening out there right now. Nathan, how are things? Busy. I think the last time we spoke was probably earlier in the year, maybe even the start of the year. It's been quite a crazy time, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The world has changed yet again. We're obviously in the middle of a prime ministerial battle, which we'll get the outcome of very shortly. It's changed the political landscape. And equally, we're in a situation where people are now dealing with a new challenge. So we're not dealing with COVID, we're dealing with the cost of living, and we're dealing with the inflation, and we're dealing with a different type of sentiment, really. So it's all change, and it's the next era, effectively.
I suppose you're right. It is always change. That is the definition of a marketplace. It moves depending on the conditions at the time. But certainly I've felt in my work going around the country, the sort of first quarter, second quarter of the year, I haven't seen a market like it in 25 years. It was just almost beyond belief. Lack of supply, incredible demand, people coming out of the woodworks, and there were some fairly strange things going on. I guess I do feel lucky in my work that I do travel the country, but I don't see as many deals as your member agents. That was what I was seeing.
Absolutely. I think the market's been a juggernaut is probably the way to do it. And of course, when you've got that kind of momentum, regardless of the short-term changes, it tends to plough through. And we're not dealing with marketplaces that can be measured in the matter of hours and days, like the stock market and the stock exchange. These are transactional decisions people are making when they go to buy a house. It can be 3, 4, 5, 6 months until they move in. So that momentum is already there as the market around them or as their living conditions change. So absolutely what you've noticed is spot on, Phil. You know, it's still very busy out there. People are very, very keen to continue that journey. It's just understanding how that will play out in the short to medium term, really.
So here we are, beginning of September. Have stock levels increased a little bit? Has demand slacked off a little bit? Where are we at now?
It's interesting. We've started to see a little bit of seasonal variation come back into the market. So it was reported in the paper not long ago that stock levels had changed and the market was on the verge of stopping. Really, that we always see variations around the July, August market, apart from the last 2 or 3 years because of COVID. Yeah. So it's nice to see we're starting to see the annualized changes coming back in. Yes. We expect September, October, November will be busy as people rush to try and work for the pre-Christmas market. But overall, we are still seeing volumes. There is more stock in the market now, which is great. So that's easing a little bit of pressure. Yeah. But part of that will be houses that have come to the market probably a little bit more money than they should have done and haven't sold. So we are starting to see price reductions come in as people become a little bit more realistic with their expectations. And buyers are taking their time a little bit more to make sure that it is the right purchase. So the mass panic buying has started to level out now and start to be a bit more competitive, which is exactly what we need to see, really.
That's reassuring words, Nathan, because it was a little bit crazy and we all just needed a little bit of time, calm down, take these decisions carefully and properly. And in order for that to happen, there needed to be a bit more balance and a bit more supply. So that's good. How about interest rate rises? Because I'm sure we haven't seen the last of them. People are factoring them in. They are added to the cost of living. You know, these are new times, aren't they? Many people won't have experienced this ever before.
Absolutely. And of course, you'll regularly hear in the media that we are still in historically low trends. And of course, over the long period, we are. But for most people in day-to-day living, they don't remember those high interest rates. No. Their lives have been circa, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75% interest rate. So we all adapt to our income and expenditure regardless of the interest rate scenario. So as we're starting to see interest rates creep up, they are naturally going to have an effect on people, not immediately. So a lot of people in their existing homes will be on 2, 3 and 5 year fixed rates. So they will be protected in the short term. For new buyers, there is still a keenness to lend. So whilst, yes, the rates are a bit higher, yes, it means affordability for some is not quite as high. They will often reflect that in the price that they pay for a property or the type of property that they go for. So it doesn't always knock the willingness out of there. It sort of tempers the edges really and calms that fire a little bit really. But it will make a noticeable difference for some individuals, definitely.
Nathan, if I'm going to ask a question that I very much dislike being asked myself, because lots of people say, "Oh, where's hot at the moment? Where's popular?" and I feel that I travel the country, yes, but I don't have sufficient experience right across the country in all price brackets to answer those questions. So I always sit on the fence and going that that's a really impossible one for me to answer. But can I? Given that your member agents are right across the country and you've got 18,000 of them, are they seeing any hotspots? Are there any kind of emerging areas that you could flag? Equally, if you'd rather not answer the question, I perfectly understand.
Let me do it this way. Traditionally, people move by and large within their local vicinity. So the 5-10 mile radius of where they are is pretty typical. One thing we noticed as we went through COVID was people actually making bigger leaps. Certainly from the city, they were moving out into the countryside. They were getting a bit further away. We were going to work from home, and there's a whole new world out there, and we're going to live a different lifestyle. The trends are starting to change. So we're not seeing people take such big leaps anymore now. It's more a case of we're moving maybe to the outskirts, but we're still commutable. And more people, by and large, starting to return to the office a bit more. Partly initially through, I think, employers driving it, but we are now seeing more and more people wanting to work in the office. And obviously, I think whether cost of living is a driver to that, I don't know. But I think a lot of people have felt isolated. They have felt lonely. Mental health has been a major thing. So people's living environment is important. So if we say hotspots, I would say the suburbs surrounding the cities have become quite popular, and people who are a little bit further out found prices, were affordable to make that leap, and they've done that. So we're starting to see, which again is more normalization, really.
Yeah. Again, great intel. So the people that have made the big lifestyle change, they've done it, and now people are moving for normal reasons, whether that's schools or jobs and that kind of thing. But they're not moving huge distances.
Absolutely right.
That's about the sum of it. Let's just talk a little bit, and you've touched on it already. The expectations. We have a worsening economic climate. What's that going to mean for buyers, particularly? Do you think? I mean, they are going to need to be strategic. They are going to need to be very price conscious. But it just occurs to me that a lot of these people, even if they're on a fixed rate mortgage, they've taken that mortgage and there's been proper stress testing before they've got hold of that mortgage, which has been, now we're really, really grateful for. It's probably a bit painful at the time. But I wonder whether the stress tests included the increase of the cost of living and fuel and heating and that kind of thing. Any thoughts on that?
There are margins built into the stress testing, to cover the range of possibilities. And banks did learn from the previous crash before. I think there was no argument about that. And so I think I'm a lot more comfortable.
Okay.
Are the extremes in some cases going to test that limit? Of course they are, naturally. But let's be honest, the one thing that has come out of this is we've all seen greater levels of equity in people's houses as well, by and large. So whilst, yes, there's more of a stress there, people do have more equity in their homes. The average loan to value is a lot lower at the moment. So if you're borrowing at, say, 80% loan to value versus 60% loan to value, the interest rate at 60% is lower and more manageable. So there's a lot more equity in people's homes. So the amount they're borrowing against the value isn't as high as it normally would be. And so in a weird way, it won't exactly counteract it, but it will provide a little bit of a cushion for people than they probably normally have had.
I love talking to you, Nathan, because you always make me calm down. Everything's going to be okay. But I know you also have, the voice of experience and reason, because you hear from many members. And at the end of the day, I do say to myself, we've all got to live somewhere. You
Correct.
know, that is, we do have to get, we need a roof over our head.
Absolutely, and let's be honest, people will adapt. You know, a lot of, if you look at people's income expenditure, a lot of people will buy necessities and then they'll buy luxury goods. So if you look at the online retailers, they've already started changing their positioning. They've started supplying, you know, Amazon starting to provide food and things like that. What they've realized is buyer patterns are changing and people are buying staples, and so there will always be expenditure. There'll always be that. We may not have so much in the way of luxury goods. We may tone down what we do on that. We may prioritize different things in our day-to-day expenditure, and it will be tight for some people.
Yeah, well,
but by and large, people will get through it. Absolutely. They've managed 16% interest rates before, and people have got through it. We're all just used to a level of lifestyle, which is probably above many countries in the world.
I wonder when, and I remember that, not that I was in debt at the time, but the 15, 16% interest rates. Society's changed a lot since then, hasn't it? We are in an immediate society, and if I want something now, I want it now. I'm not going to stand in a queue or hold on the telephone for somebody. And we live in a world of consumption. So it's going to be an interesting time. You mentioned a changing pattern, and I just wanted to ask you, if I may, about changing patterns in the investor world, the buy-to-let world. Your research, if I'm right in saying, showed some time ago that private landlords were selling up in their droves, and I worry greatly. And I know that, I'm a landlord myself. I know it's become nigh on impossible to show much of a return. So there's certainly no new ones coming in the market, and there are a lot selling up. What does that actually mean for tenants and society as a whole?
Okay, so there are definite trends of certainly what we'd call small to medium-sized landlords selling properties. Part of it is generational, because they would have bought those properties 20 odd years ago, and of course they're getting to the stage of retirement. But it's ensuring that there is enough supply for everybody, and a lot of landlords are looking at the position. We know that they are thinking about the legislation. They're thinking of the costings of starting to raise the properties to the right EPC standards, and the standards of accommodation people are wanting higher and higher levels. And so a lot of people are starting to exit, and you'll hear some of the charities will turn around and say, well, that's not a bad thing because it means somebody's bought a long-term permanent home. But the reality is, when you've got rented properties and you've got properties people live in, it's almost like having a half pint glass and trying to fit a pint into it. What we've got at the moment is we already have more demand than we have supply available in the rented sector. And if you erode that glass down, you can't put more into it. You know, it doesn't matter what you say. You know, you need to be able to have a balanced stock, and the only way you will get that is for a multi-cross-party joint initiative with a long-term plan involved, which isn't subject to different legislation, and it isn't just subject to different governments changing direction. The only way this will get sold is about supply and demand. Anything else that you're doing are short-term fixes trying to deal with the immediate problem. It's all about supply. If we've got enough supply, then enough accommodation for everybody. For individual landlords, if the risk is too great or they can't make it cover its costs, then there is no incentive to do it, Phil. And
you're talking my language. You're talking my language, particularly today, where we're about to hear who the new prime minister is. But, isn't it dumbfounding that the housing minister is not part of the cabinet? Hello, we are in a housing crisis. It affects everyone. Surely,
exactly.
The housing minister should be part of the cabinet. And
I'm looking forward to the news, and hopefully we'll get some engagement, cross-party engagement, to the level that it needs to be at to in order to provide accommodation for all.
Can I ask you a bit of a left field question, seeing as you've led me down this one, Nathan? Could you ever see I mean, you mentioned cross-party. I know where you're coming from, but could you ever see the housing department, the housing minister, for want of a better word, is not attached to a party, and that we have genuine cross-party? Look, this is the policy for the next 25 years, because it's short-term policies and kind of winning of votes and that kind of thing that has got us into some of the problems that we face today. I understand where that's come from. Governments are formed, they need to win votes, but actually housing is such a major issue. We need a major policy that's going to last a very long time.
if you look at times of national emergency, all the parties come together, they sanction whether we can go off and have a war, or you take the other side of things, you look at the Bank of England, which has effectively moved from the day-to-day processes of Westminster Parliament. These things can work when there's a will to do it. But I think the reality is it's what is the highest priority at any given time. And it's as housing is creeping up the agenda, it's on every single news bulletin in some shape or form. It's on most people's lips. And it will take a tipping point where people then start to have to react. The danger is to build houses, they don't appear overnight. It is a proper 10, 15-year plan to create the supply that we actually need to remedy the sore effectively. So we'll get there. It is creeping up the agenda. There will need to be action of some point. And all we can do is keep banging the drum really to raise the relevance of it, really.
Let's bang several drums, shall we? I'll do a couple, you do a couple. I mean, the fact of the matter is the more landlords exit, as you said, the less choice, and up goes the cost of rent because it's supply demand again. And the poor tenants, they're trying to save deposits to buy their own homes, and they're trying to drive their car to work and heat their flats. This is going to get really troublesome. One final question, if I may. If your son or daughter was, let's say, 25, what and keen to get in and get a foothold on the ladder and start paying off their own mortgage rather than somebody else's mortgage via rent that they pay, what would your advice be to them over the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
For me, it would be don't worry about what's happening in the market in the short term. The prices are going to go up, prices are going to go down. When you buy a property, we know that is actually for a longer period of time. So it's almost irrelevant what you buy it for. Inflation and price rises will take care of that. So it shouldn't deter you from buying. For me, I would advise them once they've got that property, they've got it. And so if it means scrimping and saving, beg, borrowing and stealing, once you've got yourself there, you've got that roof over your head, then you've taken care of one of your 3 priorities. It's always food, it's always funding, and it's always accommodation. They're the 3 big ifs that you need to have, really. And so I think my advice would be aspirational, still go for it. The property market is a major bedrock of the UK economy. And by and large, we have lending institutions that will support that. We have, various incentives for first-time buyers that come in place. And we won't always have the bank of mum and dad there generationally helping people out. So if bank of mum and dad is there, brilliant. But if not, don't be afraid to go for it on your own. It is a difficult battle. It means living on beans on toast sometimes. But one day you'll look back and say, thank you for making that sacrifice then.
And at the end of the day, something I sort of hold dear is that we live on an island. We don't build enough houses. We have an increasing population. We live longer. We get married later. We've got immigration. Long term, it's got to be healthy news. But we have to have the right policies in place from our leaders.
We do indeed. And it's not oversupply of housing either. Let's be honest, because, again, the country itself, the economy is based around ownership more than other areas. And you can go the other way. You can create too much supply and therefore actually the demand is too low. It is a balance, and we have short-term needs, but we have an intermediate and long-term needs, and they are a different landscape.
Yes.
Not just building properties, it's the right type of properties as generational ages come through. And that's what I'm saying. It needs more joined up thinking, and it needs a longer landscape. It's not react to today, it's planned for tomorrow.
Love that. Love that. Now, thank you so much. I'm going to go and get my drum. You're going to get your drum, and we're going to keep banging them very loud. Nathan, always good to chat. Words of comfort and advice, very much appreciated by all. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.